Don't spill the Bordeaux. You couldn't afford it anyway. The scornful voice cut through the luxurious air of the upscale Manhattan restaurant. The man at the VIP table, dressed in a finely tailored suit, leaned back in his chair with a mocking smirk. In that lavish setting where crystal glasses glittered under chandeliers and soft jazz floated in the background, the wealthy sat and treated Emily Walker as if she were invisible. Just a plain waitress, merely a servant in their extravagant world. Emily, 25 years old, wore a simple black uniform, slightly wrinkled. Her hair was tied neatly into a ponytail, her face bare of makeup without jewelry. Her beauty was not striking but quiet, genuine, unpretentious. To the guests here, Emily was nothing. Only a few minutes later, when 3 armed robbers stormed in, the entire room erupted in chaos. Screams pierced the air, people scrambled under tables. Amid the panic, only Emily remained standing, her gaze steady as stone. No one expected that within 15 seconds she would take down all 3. Her swift, precise moves revealed a past no one could have imagined. Emily had once been a member of the Navy SEALs. In the dim corner of the restaurant, William Harrington, a young billionaire, silently observed everything. He was stunned, as though the entire room had just been turned upside down in an instant. Before we dive deeper into this story, if you enjoy heartfelt and meaningful journeys like this one, please hit like and subscribe. That will encourage us to bring you more inspiring stories. And now, let's continue to see what happens next. Emily was not glamorous, not dazzling, but her amber brown eyes seemed to pierce right through people, quietly reading their emotions without effort. Every step she took was firm, resolute, even when balancing a tray of fragile crystal glasses. Licio was no ordinary restaurant. It was a fortress of the elite, where chandeliers shone like frozen rain, where the scent of truffles and vintage wine clung to every breath. Guests didn't simply come here to eat. They performed, laughing, chatting, raising their glasses, all to flaunt their power. Emily didn't belong in this world, at least not in their eyes. Her worn black flats, simple demeanor and silence made her an outsider. No one knew she had grown up in an elite family, once holding half the city in their hands. From childhood, Emily had been taught poise and pride, but she had walked away from it all, choosing a life of simplicity without titles. Now she was paying the price. Every shift at Licio was a silent battle. 7 months on the job, she always worked the night shift, the time of generous tips, but merciless customers. Her co-workers liked her because Emily was quiet, never causing trouble. She simply cleared tables, nodded at complaints, never reacting to ridicule. That wasn't weakness, it was choice, because Emily knew well where life was truly at stake, and it wasn't in these pointless verbal duels. She saved her strength for things that truly mattered. That night, the atmosphere in the restaurant felt heavier than usual. At the VIP table, laughter and chatter boomed, drowning out the jazz. Emily moved between tables, her tray steady in hand, her face composed, though her eyes missed nothing. The man who had sneered at her earlier was Charles Whitman, a hedge fund tycoon about 55 with slicked-back gray hair and a Rolex flashing every time he gestured. Beside him sat his wife Victoria in a tight red dress, lips glossed, her smile as sharp as a blade. The couple was infamous for praising and humiliating others in the same breath. Across from them was Tyler Brooks, a 30-something with an artificial tan and the slick look of a crypto bro. Beside him, his girlfriend, Amber Collins, with wavy blonde hair and diamond earrings, screaming new money. They were the worst kind of customers, loud, arrogant, always crushing others to feel superior. Emily was their favorite target. She brought a new bottle of wine to their table. Charles held up his glass to the light, pretending to examine it like an expert. "You missed a stain. I suppose where you come from, some poor corner of nowhere, no one ever taught you how to clean properly." The whole table burst into laughter, Victoria's shrillest of all. Emily gently set the bottle down, her voice even. "I'll bring you another glass." She turned away, but before she got far, Amber leaned toward Tyler, deliberately loud enough for Emily to hear. "She has no style at all. Bet she's never stepped into a place like this except to scrub the floors." Emily kept walking, her shoulders steady, but her hand tightened on the tray, her knuckles whitening for just a moment. Nearby, the restaurant manager, Mr. Randall, a gaunt man whose forehead always glistened with sweat, stopped Emily. He leaned close, voice sharp. "Stay away from Harrington's table. He doesn't need you causing trouble." William Harrington, 35, sat alone in the corner. His suit was simple but carried undeniable presence. His dark hair was neatly combed, his eyes sharp, seeming to miss nothing. He scrolled his phone detached from the room. Yet when he briefly looked up, his gaze met Emily's. In that half-second, she gave a subtle nod. "Understood," Emily replied evenly. Without another word, she turned away. When she returned to the bar, Emily set the water pitcher down, her gaze accidentally brushing against an old photo tucked inside her apron pocket. In the photo, a young woman in combat fatigue stood among her comrades on a dusty field, her smile radiant though her eyes were sharp as steel. Jack Turner, the bartender, noticed. While polishing a glass, he asked, "Family?" Emily hesitated briefly, then slipped the photo back into her pocket. "You could say that." Her voice steady. Jack nodded, not pressing further. People had learned that Emily wasn't someone who welcomed questions about her private life, but not everyone let it go. At the reception desk, Madison Price, a 22-year-old with a sharp tongue and a habit of fawning over wealthy customers, strolled over. Twirling a lock of hair around her finger, her eyes gleamed with mischief. "Hey, Emily, try smiling more. This whole restaurant has to look at your gloomy face, really kills the mood." Madison's voice rang loud enough for several tables to hear. Emily placed the pitcher down slowly, deliberately. "I'm here to work, not to perform," she replied crisply. Madison smirked. "Yeah, but maybe if you tried harder, you wouldn't look like someone fresh out of a shelter." A couple at a nearby table chuckled. Emily's fingers clenched around the pitcher for a fleeting moment before she turned and walked away. That night, the atmosphere in the restaurant thickened. Arrogant laughter, probing glances, cutting remarks, all rained down like blunt knives. Emily moved from table to table, her face impassive, the tray of wine balanced as if no gaze could touch her. But that calm didn't last. The main doors suddenly burst open. 3 masked men stormed in their boots, pounding against the marble floor. Guns in their hands glinted under the chandelier light. "Everybody down," the leader roared, his voice rasping from years of smoking. Chaos exploded. Glass shattered, chairs toppled, screams filled the air. Distinguished guests scrambled under tables, expensive gowns and suits smeared with red wine spilling across the floor. Charles Whitman yanked his wife down his Rolex, snagging the tablecloth and ripping it clean off. Victoria shrieked, clutching her handbag like her life. Tyler dropped to his knees, trembling. "Take whatever you want, just don't shoot." Amber sobbed, mascara streaking her cheeks. Across the room, William Harrington froze, his face pale, fumbling to remove his ring and watch to hand over. Emily stood in the middle of the room, an empty tray in her hands. She didn't drop it. She didn't scream. Her eyes scanned the robbers, silently counting 1, 2, 3. The leader, a burly man with a scar through his eyebrow, spotted her instantly. He charged forward, pressing his gun against Emily's chest. "Are you deaf? On your knees!" The other 2 shouted, waving guns at tables, demanding wallets, watches, jewelry. A woman in velvet trembled and whispered, "She's insane. Why won't she get down?" Emily stayed upright, her breath slow, eyes locked on the barrel aimed at her. The leader snarled, jamming the gun against her temple. "I said down." From beneath the tables, angry whispers hissed. A husband in a suit muttered to his wife, "She's going to get us all killed." Charles Whitman, half hidden under a table, clenched his teeth. "Don't be stupid. He'll shoot you on the spot." Victoria's eyes blazed. "You'll kill us all." Tyler, shaking violently, spat out, "Idiot. Just kneel already." Amber, through tears, still managed, "Who even is she? She's nobody." The whole room funneled its fear and rage onto Emily. To them, she wasn't brave. She was the reason the danger grew worse. Emily inhaled, exhaled, steady rhythm. And then, in a split second, she pivoted, sliding half a step out of the firing line. Her hand locked onto the leader's wrist, twisting it back. The gun clattered to the floor. Her elbow smashed across his jaw, sending the hulking body crashing down like a sack of grain. The tray in her hand barely wobbled. Emily set it neatly on a table, the motion smooth as if she had just cleared a dish. The room went dead silent. A wave of shock rippled. What just happened? The 2 remaining robbers froze, guns raised, but their confidence cracked. Ethan Reed, a young waiter barely in his 20s, pale as paper, crawled out from under a table, whispering frantically, "Emily, stop, you'll only make it worse." He trembled, hands raised as if begging, "You're not the police. Please just kneel." Around them, heads poked out, nodding. "She's crazy. Who gave her the right to act?" But Emily didn't look at them, her eyes fixed on the two remaining gunmen, her breath even. To the crowd, her silence looked like arrogance. In truth, it was pure focus. In a flash of memory, Emily was back on a dusty road in a war zone. Children called out for candy, her pack, heavy rifle, slung tight. A commander's shout pulled her back, and now, in Licio, her body already knew what to do. The second robber, a scrawny man with trembling hands, screamed, "Think you're a hero." He lunged forward, gun waving but hand shaking. Guests shrieked, "She's going to kill us all. She's insane." Manager Randall's face flushed, voice cracking, "Emily, stop. Let the police handle it." But Emily dipped low, dodging the swing of the gun, spun and drove a kick straight into his gut. His body flew back, crashing into a glass table. The shattering boom rattled half the room. A woman in a yellow dress leapt up, trembling, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "What does she think she is, an action star? She's showing off, and we're all paying for it." Her husband, heavy-set Rolex identical to Charles's, nodded. "Exactly. A waitress shouldn't play hero." Emily brushed her hand against the table, her gaze icy, but she didn't turn. The whole room's fury was aimed at her, the one who had shattered their script. Only one robber remained. The last robber was different from the other two. He wasn't rash. In his hand, there was no gun, but a dagger gleaming under the chandelier's light. He moved slowly, each step deliberate, like a predator stalking prey. "You're dead," he snarled, lunging low toward Emily, the blade aimed straight at her ribs. Emily leaned aside, her motion fluid as if she had practiced it thousands of times. Her wrist caught his, twisting hard. The knife spun in the air and landed neatly in her hand. With a backward push, she spun his body, sending him crashing face first into the marble floor. A dull crack echoed, and he lay still, unconscious. It had taken only 15 seconds. All three robbers were down. Emily stood in the center of the room, knife still in hand, her breath only slightly heavier than normal. Her amber brown eyes glinted with steel, freezing the air around her. But instead of applause or gratitude, what Emily received were accusations. An older man with a silver beard, his suit wrinkled after crawling under a table, jabbed his finger at her. His voice trembled but carried across the room. "She's dangerous. You saw that. She fought too well. She can't be just an ordinary person." His wife, clutching her diamond bracelet, nodded firmly. "Maybe she's one of them, pretended to save us but staged the whole thing." The whispers spread like fire. Suspicious eyes turned toward Emily, their murmurs cutting deep, transforming her victory into doubt. Emily slowly set the knife down on a table, her movements careful, deliberate, as if to prove she was no threat. But her eyes flicked briefly to the bearded man, just one look, and he shrank back, his earlier bravado vanishing. Sirens wailed outside. Moments later, heavy police boots echoed across the floor. The three robbers, cuffed, were dragged out, leaving behind a wreck of a room once drenched in luxury. Guests began to rise. Their murmurs followed not words of thanks, but of scorn. A man in a striped tie leaned close to his girlfriend, whispering, "What normal person fights like that? She must be a criminal." Manager Randall, face crimson, sweat dripping down his temples, strode toward Emily. His voice was sharp, loud enough for many to hear. "What the hell was that? What have you been hiding from me? Who do you think you are, pulling this in my restaurant, Victoria?" Whitman adjusted her hair, her voice as cold as glass. "I knew it. The moment I saw her, I knew something was off. Trouble, just like I said." Emily didn't answer. She quietly gathered the shattered glasses, her face calm. Then a police officer entered, crew-cut, an old scar across his cheek. He was about to give orders when he froze, staring at Emily. "God, Sergeant Emily Walker," he blurted, eyes wide. "I thought you'd retired." The entire room went silent, dozens of eyes locked on her. Emily only nodded, her voice low but firm. "I just want a normal life." The officer shook his head, his lips curling into an incredulous smile. "Navy SEAL. Counter-terrorism. You trained with my unit back in Kabul, 2018. You saved my life then." The suspicious faces shifted instantly. Charles Whitman pressed his lips together. Victoria's eyes widened. Tyler stared hard at the floor. Amber fiddled nervously with her diamond earrings as if to hide. Emily said nothing more. She didn't need to. The truth had spoken for itself. A middle-aged woman's silk scarf draped around her shoulders, hands trembling as she held a crumpled tissue, approached Emily cautiously. You dropped this." It was the wrinkled tissue Emily had stuffed into her apron. The woman offered it with both hands. Her eyes no longer held disdain, but a mix of reverence and fear. Emily accepted it with a nod. "Thank you." It was the first kind gesture of the entire night, small but heavy with meaning. Still, suspicion didn't vanish entirely. A businessman in the corner tie loosened, scoffed. "At best, she's just a waitress. Who's to believe she really saved us?" Victoria flicked at the wine stain on her dress, her tone biting pure luck. Try it again and she'd probably fail. Charles muttered darkly, his voice thick with contempt. "Either way, she's still nothing. That hasn't changed." Emily heard it all. Her face didn't shift. She kept stacking plates, her hands steady, eyes fixed forward. As the murmurs rippled on, Randall marched closer, his voice shrill. "You've made a fool of yourself. Do you have any idea what kind of lawsuits I could face, Emily? You're fired. Gather your things and get out." The room went dead quiet. Heads turned, some smirking Charles among them. Emily set the plates down carefully. She looked up, her eyes locking on Randall. "Are you sure?" Randall faltered, panic flickering under her piercing gaze. But he forced his throat tight. "I said, get out." Emily didn't argue. She lifted her tray, turned, and walked away, her steps calm, silent, yet louder than any protest. While the room still reeled, William Harrington, silent until now, slowly rose. He brushed off his suit jacket and walked toward Emily. The room held its breath. He stopped right in front of her. "I don't see a waitress." His voice deep, steady. "I see the only one here who stayed calm." He extended his hand for all to witness. Emily looked up, took his hand. A faint smile touched her lips, her eyes unshaken. "From today," William declared, his voice carrying across the room, "I appoint you head of security for my company." The room erupted in whispers. Charles was struck dumb. Victoria dropped her glass. Tyler lowered his head. Amber fumbled with her earrings. A new world had just opened, and nothing could stop it now. A skinny busboy, only 18, stepped out from behind the bar. His hands trembled. His face flushed red. It was Ethan Reed, the one who split tips with Emily every night, and now his eyes shone with admiration. I saw everything," Ethan stammered, his voice shaky but clear. "You saved us all." The room wavered. Some guests turned away. Others glared at him as if he had betrayed them. Ethan swallowed hard, stepped back, but his gaze never left Emily. Emily gave a slight nod, her voice soft as the wind. "It was just my job." That calm response made Ethan's heart pound. For a moment he believed she was not only a savior, but also a role model to look up to. The news exploded the next morning. Major newspapers ran the headline, "Billionaire Harrington appoints Waitress as head of security after robbery." Security footage from Licio spread across social media. The clip of Emily taking down 3 robbers in just 15 seconds was replayed endlessly, her calm face standing out against the sea of panic. Comments split into 2 camps. Some called her a hero. Others insisted she was dangerous, not normal. But no matter what was said, the truth was now beyond the control of those who had once looked down on her. Charles Whitman became the prime target of backlash when the clip of him mocking the Bordeaux glass was spliced with footage of Emily saving the restaurant. A biting caption circulated, "Here's the man who mocked the woman that saved his life." Investors fled and his fund plummeted. Victoria Whitman didn't escape either. Her upcoming charity gala lost its main sponsor after her sneering remarks toward Emily went viral. High society friends cut ties, her messages sank into silence. Tyler Brooks, the self-styled crypto king, was skewered when a tech blogger tweeted, "Crypto bro mocks Navy veteran, the very woman who saved him." Investors still comfortable with that. His funding collapsed, emails flooded in demanding explanations. Amber Collins locked her Instagram after old photos of her laughing that night resurfaced. The glamorous gowns and diamond earrings now only reminded people of her shallowness. While they floundered, Emily began her new job in a high-rise office. The glass-walled room overlooked the city skyline. Her desk was simple, adorned only with one old photo, the combat snapshot she had once kept in her apron. At her first meeting, the row of directors in fine suits fell silent as she entered. One of them, who had sat near Charles that night, forced a shaky smile. "Ms. Walker, it's an honor to have you here." He had once laughed along when Victoria mocked Emily's worn-out shoes. Now his hand trembled as he pulled out a chair for her. Emily said nothing. She sat down, her gaze composed. Her silence was no longer an excuse for mockery, but a weight that made the whole room hold its breath. At another meeting, when Emily rose to present potential security threats, William Harrington gave the slightest nod. That nod was enough to end the whispers. His authority now carried hers beside it. She didn't speak much, never boasted, but every word she offered shifted the air. Every gaze followed her, every breath grew cautious. Emily, once dismissed for her shabby uniform, had become the center of gravity, the one the entire company listened to. But Emily cared little for the noise outside. She just did her work. The old photo always sat on her desk, reminding her that none of this compared to the blistering sun in Kabul or the cost of a single life. One afternoon, after a meeting, a young assistant approached her, nervously wringing her hands. I was at Lycio that night. I saw how they treated you. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry." Emily turned her gaze quiet but softening. "It's in the past," she said, her voice low but gentle. The young woman pulled out a small card from her pocket with just 2 handwritten words, "Thank you." Emily slipped the card into her pocket beside the old photo, then walked away in silence. A small gesture, but like a stone dropped into water, it sent ripples far beyond. The way Emily moved through the conference room, the way her eyes scanned the space, was no longer invisible. People noticed. They slowed when she looked their way. They fell silent when she spoke. And each time William Harrington entered, just one nod to Emily was enough to still the entire room. The woman once dismissed as nobody had become a symbol of composure. Years ago, Emily had folded away her uniform, tucked away her medals, and promised herself a normal life. But that night, when the restaurant doors burst open and the gun barrel pressed against her chest, she had no choice. She acted not to prove anything, but because that was who she was. And now, in a skyscraper high above the glowing city, Emily didn't feel triumphant. She only felt herself steady, unshaken, just as she had always been. Late in the afternoon, as Emily left the office, a street vendor standing outside the building called out, "Miss, buy this bracelet, it's cheap." In his hand was a string of plastic beads. Emily froze, memories flooding back, the children in war-torn markets holding out candy, laughing brightly in the dusty sun. She took the bracelet and handed him a bill far larger than the price. "Keep the change," her voice soft but firm. The vendor only nodded, not knowing that this small gift had struck the deepest chord in Emily's memory. She slipped the bracelet into her pocket beside the old photo and the handwritten card that said, "Thank you." Outside, the public was still ablaze. Footage from Lycio replayed over and over on television. Social media shared, debated, argued. Some hailed her as a hero. Others insisted she was just lucky. But one thing was undeniable. Emily had stood tall when the whole room had crumbled. Charles Whitman spiraled further. The press dug up his history of belittling employees, of hurling insults. The image of the financial titan was now welded to the phrase, "the man who mocked his savior." His hedge fund lost billions within weeks. Victoria Whitman fared no better. Recordings of her sneering, ridiculing Emily spread everywhere, causing the elite circle to turn their backs. Her charity gala, once her pride, was now stripped of sponsors. Tyler Brooks could no longer find investors. His inbox overflowed with demands to explain his ingratitude that night. Amber Collins quietly locked her accounts and vanished from the glittering events she once craved. The names that once gleamed under chandeliers had become symbols of shallowness. Meanwhile, Emily kept her life simple. She didn't post boastful updates, didn't answer the press. Each morning, she went to the office, organized files, led security meetings as if nothing had happened. At one meeting, as Emily presented her risk response plan, William Harrington gave a slight nod. Instantly, the room fell silent, every gaze fixed on her. She was no longer the scorned waitress, but someone who could change the atmosphere with a single glance. Emily's silence, once dismissed as dull, had become power. One evening, the young assistant returned to her desk, her face uneasy but her eyes firm with resolve. "I saw them insult you. I stayed silent. But from today, I want to say you gave me the courage to stand up. Thank you." Emily nodded gently, not speaking much. "It's over now." The young woman left behind a small note, then hurried away. On it were just 3 words: "You are not alone." Emily tucked it into her pocket where the photo and bracelet already lay. Small things, but to her, heavy as a lifetime. Time passed, meetings continued. But each time Emily entered the room, people grew cautious, respectful. And each time William Harrington glanced her way, silence blanketed the room. She didn't need to shout. Her composure, the truth, and the unshakable past had made her someone the whole company respected. Late at night, Emily stood by the glass window, the city blazing beneath her. She remembered the day she folded away her uniform, promised herself a normal life. But at Licio, when the doors burst open and a gun barrel pressed against her chest, she had understood some things cannot be denied. She hadn't acted to prove herself. She acted because that was who she was, someone who had learned to stand firm when the world trembled. Emily's story spread everywhere. Those who had been belittled, mocked, saw themselves in her calm eyes. They whispered, "That's my story too." And Emily, in the silence of the room, simply kept walking, not to be praised, but to live true to herself, steady, unwavering, and quiet, as she had always been. For everyone who has ever been looked down upon, told they were not enough, this story is for you. You know what it means to stand tall when the world wants you to bow. You are not wrong for holding your ground. You are not alone. Emily's story has come to an end, but the lesson still echoes. Never underestimate a person just because of a simple appearance. Sometimes silence and composure are the very strengths that change everything. And what about you? Have you ever been underestimated, misjudged because of your background or appearance? Share your story in the comments. Perhaps your experience could become an inspiration for someone else. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss more inspiring stories. Every bit of support from you is our motivation to keep bringing heartfelt journeys to life. While waiting for the next story, we've already picked out a few videos you surely won't want to miss. They're right beside this one. Click and continue walking with us through moving and inspiring journeys. Wishing you a day filled with peace, strength, and the knowledge that you are always valued.